Hi, I'm Rick Martinez, a Texas-born food editor and recipe developer. I've traveled all through Mexico, studied the food, studied the people, studied the cuisine, and today I'm gonna make you Enchiladas Verdes de Pollo, or chicken green enchiladas. Enchiladas are really amazingly delicious dish. This particular enchilada dish is probably more common further in the interior of central Mexico and into the Yucatan. It's made with tomatillos and chilies, which gives it that beautiful green color. I really like it a lot. So we're going to roast our chicken and our veg at about the same time. They're gonna have slightly different cook times, but we're gonna do both at the same time. This is a multitasking dish. Okay, so I've got 3 large chicken breasts. I've got the skin on and the bone in. I feel like when you're roasting chicken, particularly breasts, because they tend to dry out pretty easily and quickly, it'll protect them. The bones will protect them from the bottom side and the skin will protect it from the top side. It'll be a lot more flavorful and juicy by leaving it on. But for now, I'm going to brush them with a little bit of veg oil. No need for using olive oil in this. We don't need the flavor of the olive oil. We just need a thin coating of oil on the top of the chicken to evenly brown and cook. It's not super necessary, but the oil is a better conductor of the heat than the raw chicken, so you'll get a nice even brown color. I'm also not gonna season them because any seasoning I put on the chicken at this point is just going to sit on the top of the chicken skin, which I'm gonna discard later anyway. All right, I'm gonna throw these in the oven. The oven is preheated to 450 degrees. You wanna arrange the 2 racks in the upper and lower thirds of the oven. We're gonna cook the vegetables in the higher rack. So the chicken is gonna cook for about 40 to 45 minutes until the skin is golden brown and the chicken's cooked through. Meanwhile, we're gonna start prepping the veg. Okay, so I have these beautiful tomatillos here. A lot of people think that these are green tomatoes. They're actually not. They're related to the gooseberry. They're actually a fruit. They have an almost plum-like flavor. They're not sweet, but they're really tart. They're really good. They're very common in Mexican cuisine. It does have this husk, which you do need to take off, and it'll feel a little bit sticky. It's just the resins that protect the skin and the flesh of the tomatillo. You wanna wash this off, so you can either do it in a little bowl of water like I'm doing here, or you can just run it under cold water and just give it a good rub. It'll come right off. Sometimes they have a little stem. Make sure you take that off as well. All right, those are clean. Now I'm going to quarter my onion. This is a white onion. These are pretty common in Mexican cuisine. If you don't have white onion, if you only have yellow or red, that'll work too. All right, I'm gonna grab a sheet tray. And I'm just gonna throw the veg directly onto the pan. And no need to oil the veg. They're gonna be just fine. I've got several cloves of garlic. I'm gonna leave the skin on. This is gonna protect them. If I took the skin off and roasted them, they would cook a lot more quickly than the rest of the veg. They're basically gonna steam inside the skin. They'll get nice and sweet, lose a little bit of their pungency, but it's gonna add a really beautiful roasted garlic flavor to the sauce. I've got 2 large jalapeños. If you like it really spicy, you can definitely add a 3rd. If you don't like it spicy at all, you can halve them and pull the seeds out and just roast the 2 halves of the jalapeno. And I'm going to throw this in the top rack of the oven. These will cook for about 30 to 40 minutes. It's been about 38 minutes. I'm gonna check on my veg. Oh yeah, perfect. Beautiful golden color on the onions. This browning on the jalapeno is exactly what you want to see. Looks amazing. All right, a few more minutes on the chicken and I'll pull that out. It's been about 45 minutes. I'm gonna check the chicken now. Yes, okay. It looks great. Nice and golden. And that is exactly what you want to see. I'm gonna let this sit and cool off. And then once it's cool enough to handle, I will shred the meat. All right, so the veg is cooked, the chicken is cooled off. Now I'm going to shred the chicken. The first thing you wanna do, just pull off the skin, comes right off. And then the flesh will actually come right off the bone. And you can definitely save these and make a really flavorful stock. Or you can just completely discard them or compost them. All right. So I have 2 forks here. I'm just gonna break the meat apart. You can just pull with the forks. You could actually do it with your hands too. In fact, it might actually be easier. This chicken is pretty cool at this point. We're not looking for, you know, perfect shreds. You could chop it if you wanted to as well. We basically want bite-sized pieces. All right, chicken is shredded. I'm gonna put this aside and we will finish the sauce. I'm gonna start with peppers. All right, so now we're gonna char some peppers. If there was a secret ingredient in this sauce, it would be this. These are poblano peppers. They're really, really delicious and flavorful. I'm gonna roast them because I think that that just brings out a lot of the sweetness, but also you'll get a little bit of that charring, so the sauce will have a very sweet and bitter kind of edge to it, which I really like a lot. I'm going to crank my stove up to high, and then just take 2 peppers, I like these 2, and just lay them directly over the flame. It's gonna take a while. It takes probably about 4 minutes aside. Depending on how high your flame is, you can actually hear it. It's starting to pop and sizzle. That's exactly the sound you want. It is gonna get a little bit smoky, so if you have a good ventilation system or a hood, you definitely wanna turn that on right now. But you just wanna let them sit. You don't have to move them, you don't have to do anything to them. You want them to get really, really nice and charred. All right, let's see what this is looking like. Ah, look at that. It's really, really beautiful. That's exactly the kind of char we want. And then I'm just gonna flip that over. All right. This one's gonna need a little bit longer. All right, these are almost done. I'm gonna go grab the bowl for the peppers. I also have a piece of plastic. It's important that you steam the peppers after they come off the fire. You need the steam to help release the skin. If you tried to pull the skin off without steaming them, it's just gonna come off in little flecks. By steaming them, it's gonna soften the skin, it's gonna absorb some of the moisture, and you'll get large pieces of skin coming off at the same time. It's a lot easier. Just make sure that you get as much of the green off and charred as possible. This one looks like it's pretty much all blackened, and that is exactly what you want. You may think this is overdoing it or completely burnt. It's not. That is just the skin. So we're gonna put that in there. I'm going to cover it until I get the others done and let that steam. All right, this looks really good. I'm gonna put this in. All right, now I'm gonna char the rest of the peppers. All the peppers have been charred. I wrap them in plastic. They're gonna steam for 15 minutes to let the skin soften up, and then I'm gonna peel and clean them. All right, it's been 15 minutes. I'm going to clean these guys up. All right. The skin, you can see, just peels right off. This would be so much harder if you didn't let these steam. But you can see how soft they are. And if you don't get all the charred skin off, it's totally fine. It's just gonna add a little bit more flavor. This one still has a little bit of the stem left, so I'm gonna go ahead and open it up, take that little woody stem part out, and you can see actually the seeds. This one has quite a few. Just discard that. And then a lot of times the inside of the pepper might get a little bit sticky and the seeds may not want to come out and they may stick to your hands. What I usually do is just run this under cold water. I have a bowl of water and I will show you. It's just a little way to get most of the seeds off and some of the extra charring off. You can see, completely clean. All right. If you're charring jalapeños, you definitely want to wear gloves because those seeds will burn you. But for these, I'm not that worried. Just kind of rip around the stem part. Some of the ribs came out too. Scrape away some of the seeds. And then whatever's left, Just give it a little dip. So, this is a blender sauce. I love using the blender in Mexican cuisine. Typically, you would use either a molcajete or a matete, which is another lava rock grinding device. I just feel like the blender is, you know, a really, really quick and easy way to make these sauces. So I'm gonna put my roasted peppers down first. All right. And now I'm going to add all these veg. Make sure that you peel the garlic. And these are pretty well roasted, so you can just kind of squeeze them out into the blender. They're soft and creamy, they're really sweet. I love roasted garlic. And then I'm going to add my onion and the tomatillos. All right, that is everything. Now I'm going to add the spices. So I love this combination a lot. It's coriander, which coriander seeds are actually the seeds from the cilantro plant. So I'm going to add that in here. I also have some ground cumin, which I also love. I think cumin and the coriander go so nicely together. And wouldn't be one of my Mexican dishes without Mexican oregano. Got a little bit of that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and season. It's probably gonna take maybe like a teaspoon and a half of kosher salt. I'm gonna cover this up. And we wanna start this off on low. You don't wanna go too high, so I'm just gonna go ahead and blend this on low speed. All right, now I'm going to add the cilantro. So the reason why I'm adding the cilantro at the end is because I really want to see bits and pieces of the cilantro. It's gonna add just a little pop of bright green color that I really like a lot. So I don't want this to be completely just blended in there. I wanna be able to see the specks of cilantro. All right. All right, there we go. So I'm starting to see that the cilantro is getting chopped up, and it looks pretty good now. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop that. I'm gonna give it a taste to make sure it's got enough salt. Looks really good. All right, I'm gonna grab my bowl and transfer this. That color's really beautiful. And now I'm going to fry my tortillas. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flash fry them in really hot oil. What that's gonna do is it's gonna seal the two sides of the tortilla so that they just hold together better. They will soak up some of the sauce, but they're not gonna disintegrate in the pan like they would if I didn't use it. So I've got my pan heating up with oil. You really don't need a thermometer for this. The way that I normally check to see if the oil is hot enough is just dip the tortilla in the oil, and if you see bubbles like that, that means it's ready to go. So this is a flash fry. We're not making this crispy. You definitely don't want to leave it in there that long, and depending on how hot your oil is, this could take anywhere from 3 to 10 seconds. So this is pretty hot. You're gonna see bubbles. Just kind of press it down. Once you see the bubbles, give it a flip. It'll start to stiffen up a little bit, and then that means it's done. So just lift it out of the oil. See how it's a little bit stiff? Let me show you a comparison. This one is pretty floppy. This one's got a little bit of stiffness to it. That's exactly what you want. You don't want it to be so stiff and crispy that when you go to roll it, it's gonna break. Now I'm just gonna let that sit there, and I will fry the rest of them. Adjust your heat because there's not a lot of oil in here. There's only about a cup of vegetable oil. And even if you have it on medium heat, it's going to continue to heat. If you see little wisps of smoke, that means it's gone a little bit too high. Just go ahead and turn it down. You'll see a little bit of color. It'll go from a pale blonde of the raw tortilla, and you'll get like just a hint of color. and that's what you want. So I'm frying up 10. We're using a 13 by 9 baking dish, and I feel like 10 fits pretty snugly in there. All right, this is the last one. All right, heat is off, and now we're gonna start assembling. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a cup of sauce, and I'm going to spread this out over my baking dish. This is the same thing that you would do if you were making a lasagna. You don't really need it there for any other reason than to just lubricate the bottom of the pan so that the tortillas don't stick. All right, and now we're gonna add 3/4 of a cup of sauce, which I'm eyeballing, to my chicken. And I'm just gonna go ahead and give this a little toss. Basically, every part of this dish is going to have some of the sauce. I feel like, I've had enchiladas where the chicken is rolled in the tortilla and it just feels really dry. So I just like having everything kind of zhuzhed up. All right, that looks good. What you actually do in Mexico is you actually take the tortilla and you just dip it in the sauce. And it makes it a little bit softer and more pliable. You don't need to go crazy with the coating, but it's just another added element of flavor that I find is just more pleasant. It adds a much better texture. And so this step helps them soften up a little bit more. When you make your sauce, you should have about 5 cups total. And then with the amount that you're putting in your chicken and what you've got down, should be enough to coat all 10 tortillas. It doesn't matter if there's not that much sauce left. All right, so now we're going to fill. All right, take your chicken. You probably want about 1/4 cup. And then what you want to do is just center everything along the center line. Take one side of the tortilla, fold it over, and then just roll. And then you want to place them seam side down in the pan. All right, I'm gonna take about 1/4 cup of filling, or a little more if you like fat enchiladas, which I do. Line it up in the very center, just make a little log. Take one side, fold it over. You wanna pinch as tight as you can, and then just give it a roll. And then just lift it up, place it seam side down, and make your next one. Another thing that I like about this recipe, particularly this sauce, is it's really versatile. So if you didn't want to do chicken, you could do pork. Roasted pork shoulder would be great. Or if you're pressed for time, if you get a rotisserie chicken and just shred the chicken in the same way that I did these breasts, that'll save you some time. Or if you have roasted veg, or if you want to roast veg, some mushrooms would be really good in this, root vegetables, just whatever you have. But it's the last one. If you have any leftover filling, you can kind of tuck it into some of the other ones. That's totally fine. All right, there we go. These look really beautiful. And then with the leftover sauce, you just want to spoon this over the top. Like I said, everything has already been pretty nicely sauced at this point. And I'm going to cover this with foil when we bake it, so the enchiladas are not gonna dry out. It's another thing that I really don't like. I don't mind a crispy edge, certainly, on a tortilla, and as these bake with the foil, they're gonna steam, and all these tortillas and the chicken are gonna absorb a lot of that flavor. They're gonna be really, really delicious once they're done. These now get covered with foil. I have a piece already cut. And just wrap that. It doesn't have to be super tight, but all right, I'm gonna pop this into a 450-degree oven for about 20 minutes. Okay, it's been about 20 minutes. These things are ready to come out of the oven. Oh. Oh. All right. The hardest part about this dish is that you have to wait so long, but it's so worth it. Look at that. All right. So while this is cooling, I'm going to mix up the crema. So crema is basically like a creme fraiche, but it's a little bit thinner. It's a slightly soured cream that's used typically in Mexico. It's great for drizzling on dishes like the enchiladas. If you can't find crema, then you can make your own. So you can either use creme fraiche or you can use sour cream, whichever you can find. I prefer creme fraiche because the fat content is slightly higher than sour cream. And so what you want to do to make it pourable is just add a little bit of whole milk to it and give it a little stir. And then you'll be able to drizzle it over top. I'm going to put the crema down first. And I think it's really pretty when it's just kind of drizzled over the top. And I'm gonna save a little bit more for serving. This is just gonna cut some of the heat. Those 2 jalapeños in there have their seeds, so it is going to be a little spicy. All right, now I'm going to put the onion down. And if your guests aren't into onion, then don't put that much. But I feel like the onion actually just adds a nice cooling, kind of refreshing bite. The onions that are in the dish are actually pretty sweet because we roasted them. All right, now I'm gonna crumble up some cheese. And yeah, the great thing about this cheese is it crumbles really easy, so you don't have to grate it. It'll come in a little block, and then you can just kind of, I don't want to go too crazy with the cheese because we can use more of the cheese and onions to garnish the individual plates. But I would definitely garnish in the pan and then just save a little bit for individuals to add their own. I think it looks really, really pretty. Finally, I'm gonna plate this up. It looks so good. I've got my plate and fork and knife down here. All right. I'm gonna go in. So I'm gonna serve 2, I probably will get a third later, but if, you do you. So if you want just one, just grab one, but I'm definitely gonna eat 2. All right. Finally, I get to eat. All right. Oh, yes. Mmm. Mmm. Everything's really tender. I can taste the corn in the tortilla. The tomatillo is like just brightening everything up. The chicken is super tender. Mmm. The onions are so nice. I want more. This is my recipe for Enchiladas Verdes de Pollo, chicken green enchiladas. It's really delicious. I'm gonna make this for my friends, but right now, I'm gonna take this plate and eat it for me.